Well, he and I have been exchanging a lot of emails. So, and I sent him one of my.
Okay.
All right, now we have Simon.
Yes, let me introduce you. This is Simon from Tanzania.
Hi, Simon.
Yeah, we met on the other call, on the other link. But I think just a brief introduction. I met Louisa at Scratch conference last year. And since then, since that Scratch conference, I've been engaged in the Global Educators community. I teach STEM activities here using Scratch, using Turtle Teach to young girls through an organization called She Codes for Change. And then also I started supporting another program that is in the national reserves, the national parks of Tanzania, and called Potential Enhancement Foundation. And they're equipping schools with Raspberry Pis and putting programming curriculum on them. And so it's exciting. And like I told you before, I'm excited for this call.
Very nice.
So, please, Simon, tell Stephen how we have been working and which connections we have already made. Could you please?
Yeah. I mean, so personally, me and Eloisa, we met at Scratch conference. By then, I was already engaged in teaching coding. But through that, she has been able to share her knowledge with us at She Codes for Change here. And then we submitted a grant, one to help Tanzanian disabled children sort of get better in class through coding and practical critical thinking skills. But also just through this network, I've been able to meet a lot of people who are practicing different education techniques all over the world. We've met a few who are designing circuits, who are designing robots. Through the network, I've got to know people who are teaching different designs. For example, like for the Turtle Stitch program that we're doing, there's a class here in Tanzania, there's a class in Nairobi, and there's a class in the US, which is being led by Susan. I'm sure you've seen her posting. And so through this network, we've managed to meet another lady who is from, I think, Southern America, and they are doing patterns also there. And so it's been quite interesting to be able to connect a global link of educators who are interested in the same ideas and same programs. And so, okay, let's share your knowledge. Let's see how we can implement the same knowledge here. Oh, I see Sandy's here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi,
so yeah,
Sandy.
the network has been really helpful.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
Hello, Sandy.
Hi, Eloisa. How are you? Hi, Simon.
This
Hi,
is Stephen. Yes.
Hi,
Please
Sandy.
introduce yourself to Stephen. He's joining us for the first time.
Oh, all right, great. I'm Sandy. I work in Delaware K-5 elementary computer science, and I've been doing that for about 7 years. And I run a after-school club, call it a Tinkering Dojo, where we do a lot of physical computing, meeting with the digital world.
Very nice.
Pretty much it.
Good.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you have already heard about his work, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it was funny when I saw it come up there. I had it on my Kickstart. It was on a remind because I'd seen it when the Kickstart had started, and It was actually on one of my reminders because I think the Kickstart ends in 7 days or something. So I had it set as a reminder to take another look at it because it's like a makey, but it has some extra stuff, and then I like the. It looked like it was simpler, with the Lego way you can click it onto Legos. I was really into the Lego thing, so
yeah,
I had that marked as a reminder.
That's fun. Good. So there's another person there.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. My name is Andre. Yeah. Nice to join you.
Nice.
Yes, we have new people joining us to this new in the group, I mean. And so we're starting waiting for people. So each one is introducing yourself to Stephen. So Andrew, it's a pleasure to have you here. I hope you can present your work. It's very soon to our group too. Andrew was introduced me by Derek Brin.
Oh, Derek, yeah.
So it's a big community that is connecting and connecting. So please, Andrew, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Andrei Lobanov. I am from Russia, from Moscow, and like based on my education, I'm a scientist in math. But for the last 2 years, I'm really deep in teaching kids coding. So I am founder of the company who is developing a software that can be used by teachers and the kids on the school lessons, or in the schools, or as extra educational programs. And now it is used by 10,000 kids each week in Russia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and some other countries. Now we're starting pilots also in Australia, for example.
Great.
That's great. Amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, you know people from Australia?
Of course, I know some people from Australia. Actually, all of the people that I know that not from the like educational environment, let's call it, but hopefully we'll know some of them soon.
Yes, you know, we have representatives from 4 continents. It's just this continent, you know, so I'd like to know someone that knows someone from there. Yes.
I think in several months, when I meet some cool people there, I will try to get them on these calls. Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
We will add one more continent.
Yes, the last one. Yes. Okay. So
a company in Australia that distributes a lot of different STEM products. They're called Little Bird Electronics. They're a big distributor like SparkFun, and I only know them because they contacted me and they carry some of the products that I make. But they have a wide range. Little Bird Electronics, I think it's called. So
Super.
That's Australians. But I think next week we're having a group of the Australian Trade Association is coming to New York in the next week or two. So and there's a meeting there to meet them. So I'm going to try to make contact. So maybe I'll bring you an Australian or a kangaroo.
yes, okay. So do you have any problem getting this linking and making this work? Because people are asking me, sorry if I'm absent for a while, because I'm trying to give to make sure that everybody's can join us here.
The last link, this one is perfect.
It's working. Okay. Okay. And Maureen. Hello, Maureen. Good morning.
Hi, Maureen.
Turn on your yes.
Yep. Okay. Hi, Elisa. How are you doing?
Hi. Nice to have you here.
Maureen was a backer of my first Kickstarter, which was 4 years ago. She's really put me into the world of physical computing. So I have to thank her for that.
Oh, well, thank you for making cool stuff.
And I'm just curious because I don't see it. If I want, since I'll be showing a few things, do I have to click on my little picture to make it the main picture so that you can see some of the details, or do you see me when I'm talking? Do I get big? I don't think so.
You have the screen share feature on the app left corner. You have an icon that you can use to share.
Yeah. And if you're just showing anything in front of the camera, it's okay. Just put it in front of the camera and we'll just see it.
Okay.
Okay.
But the question is, does it get big? Like when I'm speaking, do you see a bigger picture of me, or
Yes.
just a little one in the corner?
No. When you're speaking, we see a bigger picture.
Okay. 'Cause I don't see. Okay, good. So we can do that whenever we're ready. I think the screen sharing is going to be a bit difficult. What I would suggest is that if you have another window on your computer, that you could go to funkey.net, funkey.net, and leave that open, because I think it's going to be, there are a lot of examples on there that you can see, and I think it's going to be quite difficult to try to screen.
Could you put the link for us in the chat?
Let me try that.
Please.
Yeah, it was already there in one of the earlier notes, but let me try just putting it up now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if that worked. So that link, if you open up another window, it will be easier. Well, let me get back here. If you open up another window, it will be a little bit easier for you to sort of browse around things. I don't think I can do, I'm going to hold up some objects and you'll see them, but I think it's not going to be possible in the video conference itself to show you some of the videos that are on the website and show everything that's possible. So that's something you can do while we're talking or afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on that website, the best introduction to different things you can do, there's a menu on the right-hand side that says Do It. And the Do It menu in the Funkey.net site will show you some examples of what you can do. Also on the front page of the Funkey.net, you'll see little animated GIFs, and that gives you a little picture also. I think there are 6 of them up there. And that gives you a little animated picture of some of the different types of activities.
Sorry, Stephen, I didn't get the link.
Funkey.
It's on Facebook.
Yes.
Oh, the Facebook link
Can
didn't go up?
Okay.
Yeah, let me just say it. It might even be easier. I did try to put it up there, and I think I see it there.
I have some technical problems right now here. Sorry.
www.funkey.net. So that will give you, something you can browse while we're talking, if you like, or afterwards. Hopefully that helps. Funkey.net, Funkey.
We got it. Thank you.
Now, okay, good.
Thank
so
you.
If you were to open that up in a separate window, I don't believe with the video conference I'll be able to take you through examples from the website, but I'll show you some physical stuff. Like there's one here.
Oh,
there's one.
Just one more has joined us. Please let me introduce.
Okay.
This is we have 3 new persons today. So we have people from Tanzania, United States, from Russia, from Vienna, and from Brazil. So it's a very interesting group we have today. So welcome to everybody. And I think we should start. What do you think? We could officially start our presentation.
Sure.
Any questions? And is there any things? Maybe other people will join us during the presentation, but now we're going to officially. Oh, yes. Oh,
Eliza, one question. Like, are we recording the meeting? So it will be available afterwards?
Yes.
Super.
Yes, I hope so. That is the problem, because this sessions has changed. They have changed the features. So sometimes we have to make some different things every time to make sure that it's being recorded. So I think now it's okay. But if you want to try to record it in another way, please feel free. It's open. Okay. And now we have also another one, and our dear friend Maria Beatrice from Italy, but now living in Sweden. Say hello, you both of you, please.
Hello. Hello.
Andrea, please introduce yourself too.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm happy to be here. Happy to see everybody, and I'm really curious about Funkey.net. I'm Andrea from Turnstich.
From where?
Vienna, Austria.
Okay, good. I can start talking a bit if you'd like, Eloisa.
Yeah, there are two more trying to connect.
Okay, good. We'll wait.
Oh, one more? Cool. Oh, the two more. Okay, now it worked. Sorry for that. We have Ana Palhuza, a Brazilian friend that lives in Portugal, and our dear friend also. Oh, dear friends. Oh, so Veronica from Mexico. Hi, Veronica. Would you like to introduce Anna? Would you like to talk something? To introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for this invitation. I'm very glad to be here. I was invited some friends of Educativos. I am in a team named Educativos from Mexico. We are from different level of educators, and we love to create, and we love to imagine, and we love to dream how to do with technology at school and how to work being happy, everybody. Thank you, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Hi, Anna.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here and nice to be back, trying to be back. I am originally from Brazil. I live abroad for about 17 years now. And we met with Eloisa at the MIT online course that we took about 6 years ago. And from now I finished my PhD in urban planning. And now I'm trying to come back after have 2 kids. I'm trying to come back to the Scratch and code world. So nice to be back. And thank you, Eloisa, for this conferences.
You're welcome. So I think the team is complete now. Maybe we should start. That's okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Lewis. I teach computer science in high school. But for the last 4, 5, 6 years, I've been developing hardware and software for physical computing, coding, science activities, and things of that nature. So I have right now 2 products on the market. And they have, can you see me, by the way, if I hold something up? I don't hear anybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is one of the products. And if you're familiar with Makey, the purpose, the functionality, the main difference being that you don't have the little headers, which I find quite awkward. You have only the alligator clips. And alligator clip, here's one. So they plug in like this. You have 18 keys instead of just the 6. And the price of the board is about a third of Makey. My opinion is that Makey is very, very, very expensive for schools, unjustifiably so. So I wanted to bring that out. That's on the market. So just to reiterate, there's a if you want to know more and see some activities with this, I don't think we'll be able to do that much except hold things in front of the camera right now. But if you go to Funkey, Funkey.net, either now or afterwards, you'll see a fair amount of information about how to use that. Now, so the Funky Simple is the one you just saw. It's a nice product, but it really only has that one idea of improving what the Makey was intended to do. The sort of more substantial product is this one, and it's kind of a larger version, but it has the ability to use sensors. And I have a variety of sensors and actuators. Those are outputs. Here's an LED. And you basically just plug them into the slots around the outside, and you have a physical computing environment that's really quite robust. So some of the types of things that come with it, the idea is, how do I say this? They really are, it's out of the box, it's supposed to be something that's extremely easy to use. It scaffolds the learning along the way because it actually has 6 different modes built into it. The first mode, if you think of a kind of a little bits mode, where you just have a power to it and you have inputs and outputs. Can people hear me? Yes? Okay, good, because I can't hear you. And it has a Scratch mode for coding with Scratch. It has a JavaScript mode for coding with JavaScript. And in the end, at the end of the scaffolding, if you should ever want to go there, it's based on an Arduino, so you can actually program it directly with the Arduino IDE. However, I consider that, in my experience and in other teachers' experience, to be...
Stephen,
yes.
Sorry, could you speak a little bit slower? Because sometimes it cuts, so we lose the information, please.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just to repeat, this is the Makey competitor. And this is the Funky Super, which is a very capable multi-purpose board. And I will show you some examples of what you can do with it. But it's important to remember that if you go to the funky.net website, you'll see a lot of examples and information. Even on the front page of the web page, you'll see little animated GIFs that show you some examples. But I will show you a couple now. So the simplest mode, I'm going to show you a project that I made, which is a plant moisture measuring device. So for sort of a science project, and I'll show you what's inside. So it'll be hard to do. Here's the board. Here's the battery pack connected to the board, because you can power this board either through the USB or through the battery. Here is a soil moisture sensor. And it's also connected to a servo motor. The servo motor is a standard servo motor, but I've attached a little black straw to it, so that you can consider it to be like a sort of a needle, a meter. So I'm going to put it back together, back in the box. It's intended to be very do-it-yourself. On the inside, I think you can see that all we've really done is connected the servo motor to one of the ports, and the moisture sensor to another, just plugged right in to those locations. And then I'm going to turn the battery on. So, beep, and it flashes a little bit. And then we close up the box. And then when the students are finished, it kind of looks like this. Here's the moisture sensor. Sorry, this is not so easy to do. And now I'm going to have a little plant right here. And I'm going to try to put the moisture sensor into the plant, and let's see what happens. I'm about to put it into the plant. So this is the dry mode. And when I stick it into the plant, it moves over a little bit to a different level because, so here's the moisture sensor. I'm putting it into the dirt of the plant, and you can see that the meter has moved over. So that's just for understanding purposes, I'm going to call that the little bits mode, even though you can't really do that with little bits. So little bits is a product where you have a battery operation, and you have sensors, and you have outputs. So similar to that idea, in the simplest, in the battery operated mode, this board will be put in any input over here, and one of your outputs over here, and the input will control the output. So what do I mean by inputs? We have, you saw the moisture sensor. This is a potentiometer. We have a variety of different sensors. Here's another one. This is a sensor that can tell whether something is in front of it or not. So if you were to connect, and we have LEDs, we have the servo motors, little servo motor, and other types of, we have a buzzer. And these are all connected with the wires that plug straight into the board. Snap, snap. And in that mode, it's very, very simple. You have sort of a map, and it says this one controls this. Whatever you put in here controls this. This one controls this one. That kind of works straight across. So for a student to invent something, when a motion sensor, we have motion sensors, triggers something, an alarm should go off. When the plant is dry, the light should go off. That sort of thing. So those types of direct arrangements between a sensor, which we supply, we have a lot of nice sensors, you'll see, and then some of the outputs, it requires no coding at all. It's just plug and play. So it has, as I say, some of the easy invention-oriented input-output features of something like Little Bits. So that's good, no coding. Now, if you're teaching, so that's one of the modes of the board. Another mode is the scratch mode. So in scratch mode, if you connect a sensor, you can use the sensor input to control things in Scratch. And any of the sensors that we have available, or any other sensors you may have, can put their input, their values into Scratch, and you can make the cat move around depending on whether you've covered up the light sensor or a potentiometer. And so the simplest coding, when you move from the little bits mode to the coding mode, we like Scratch because we think it's very popular and a lot of people use it. So we allow you to put as many as 6 sensors simultaneously into Scratch and make things happen. Now this could be for fun. We have the potentiometer, and when you turn the dial, the cat can move. You can make light sensors to have interactive games just by shielding the amount of light that falls on the light sensor. We have temperature sensors. You'll see on the website there are quite a few sensors. So the idea is now to step to coding interface. This is obviously physical computing, in which a program like Scratch can be used to be controlled by or measure a variety of sensor data from the world. The same thing could be done with the moisture sensor. I have a Scratch program. So I have a Scratch Studio in which I've put some of these programs up there. They're actually quite simple to write because the data is coming in or the sensor information is coming in, and you just react to it with Scratch. But for science studies, for example, I use Scratch's pen up and pen down in order to actually make a graph of the data. So if you're teaching about moisture in a plant, or if you're teaching about light, or if you're teaching about speed, where you might have a little ball or going down a cardboard ramp, and you use these sensors here to detect the ball went in front of the first sensor, and then use another one to detect that the ball went past the second one. It's very easy with the scratch timer to just get the elapsed time between two places on the ramp or as the ball is moving, and it will, Scratch's timer will give you a very fairly accurate calculation of the elapsed time. So the science area is very interesting if you're teaching science, but you want students and teachers to be able to use a little bit of Scratch code and a coding interface to do science measurements the way real scientists do it, which is using some sort of computing and sensing mechanisms. So that's a whole other category. When you use the Scratch component, the Scratch interface, which is built into the board, you can do that for science. Another example of that, which is quite nice, is if you put the moisture sensor that I just showed you in the plant and you leave it on overnight, you can get Scratch to save all the values, perhaps every 5 minutes taking a value of the moisture, or every 10 minutes and making a new point. And Scratch will actually, so I wrote a little Scratch program that will graph, you just leave the computer running overnight, and it will graph the amount of moisture that was in the plant, which of course decreases through transpiration. So there are quite a few science-oriented activities that can be done with very simple Scratch coding. And one of the things that I think is interesting is to be able to bring your science teachers and their students into the world of coding at a level that both the teachers can master, because it's Scratch, it's pretty easy, and that the students can work with as well. Any questions so far? Or can you actually hear me?
Yes, we turn it off so it's better for the others listening to you.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. So,
yeah. But I think Sandy already has a question. Sandy, would you like to ask him?
Well, I just wanted to, am I up? I just wanted to ask about the studio. When you mentioned the studio, I just wanted a link to that. I'd like to see the projects that you have to go with that. So that's what I was looking for, was a link. And I know Maureen wants a link as well. I saw that on hers.
Yes, yes. It's called the Make Sense Studio. And I mean, honestly, it's a little bit disorganized. There's quite a bit in there. But what I'm doing now is linking from the Funkey.net website. When you see a sample, there will often be a direct clickable Scratch link. So I would say that's just because I haven't had time to organize the Scratch Studio, but I do have a lot of Scratch programs on the Scratch in my area of Scratch, but I'm linking to them one by one. It's just a matter of time. I haven't been able to organize the studio, but the programs are there. So, and if you look on the website and you see some of the examples, they'll often be, here's the Scratch code for that, click on it, and it takes you right to the Scratch. So I will, I'll make that a little bit clearer as time goes on. Just to jump up to the other aspect of this, we have another mode for the board. Now, so just so you know how the board works, there are 6 different modes. They're reasonably well explained on the website. And when you want to go from one mode to the other, I'm going to see if I can do this. You connect a pair of these connections across, and they're labeled. You plug the board in, it goes blinky, 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 and it sets itself into that new mode. So this is a little bit overwhelming, but this is actually 6 different boards in one. It's, I think they're described a little bit on the website, but there's the one where there's no coding, the one that I showed where you can make inventions like the moisture sensor. There's the Scratch mode. We actually emulate the Pico mode in Scratch, if you're familiar with that one. That's built right into Scratch, so you can just click on it. I also have examples in Scratch of how to make that work. We have a JavaScript mode, a Blockly mode. I don't know if you're familiar with Blockly. Blockly is a Google product that's a little bit like Scratch with drag and drop blocks. And you can set this board into that mode and you'll be able to get the input from a sensor and control the outputs with code. You can use pure JavaScript if you want. That's another mode. And then, as I say, the final mode, but you know, for a lot of teachers and students, this is pretty complicated to learn, is Arduino mode. So the reason that works is because this happens to be an Arduino Leonardo chip. That means that if you are teaching at a high level, maybe it's a high school class, and you want to use the Arduino IDE, then these are your analog and digital ports, A0, A1, A2, D0, D1, D13, etc. They're all labeled on the board. I consider that to be a pretty advanced use, and maybe depending on the level of your students, that may be, and other teachers who you want to be involved, that may be an end goal. But what I found in teaching is that Arduino is quite difficult for teachers and students, especially if the class is a good size or the teachers are not so familiar with it. It breaks down all the time. So I think what I tried to do with this board is give you a series of levels that are from the simplest level on through more complicated levels, so that you can choose any one of those levels and do creative work with your students. An example of some of the other things that we do, this is a fun little, this is an anemometer that you can make with little paper cups. And as an example, if you want to know the wind speed, you take one of the sensors, say this is blowing around in the wind, and the sensor will record every time it sees the edge of the cup going around. So you can actually, in Scratch, count the number of times the sensor sees something, and take that information and turn it into a sort of a weather. Go ahead.
Can you show us a little bit closer? Yes. Yeah. And turn it around. Oh, okay. Oh,
so great. You can make this. We made this one. Oh, sorry. I don't see if I can get that up close. We made this one out of Legos, and little plastic cups. So when the wind blows, it turns around. You can also make it out of 2 straws. If you have a big straw and a little straw, then the inner straw will spin nicely, and it's attached to the cups around the inside. So these are science projects that you can do with inexpensive materials. Here's another using, this is a wind chime device that we made out of a cardboard box. And what you do is take these, let me see if I can get this open. So again, this, I know I'm going rather fast, but this sensor knows if something is in front of it. If something is in front of it, it sends back a signal. Now you might think for a minute, makey, wouldn't it be great if instead of having to touch a piece of fruit and hold a cable in your hand, in your other hand, wouldn't it be great if you could just wave your hands around in the air? And that's what this does. So if you're using this in, let's just call it makey mode, then if you put this sensor into, I don't know if you can see that I've done that, put the sensor into one of these holes, and we take 5 of these sensors, put them in. one of them, each one of them would send back, let's say, an A key or a B key or a W key or an F key. Then in Scratch, so this would become a wind chime, in which, as a little ball is blowing around in the wind, it kind of goes over each of the sensors and it sends back the simulated keystroke, if you think of makey type thing, and it's going to go boop, 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 boop. And your entire code for that is, in Scratch, would be when the A key is pressed, play, you know, a note of some kind. So that is sort of, let's just call that enhanced makey mode. We say enhanced because you can use a sensor instead of a piece of foil or fruit. You don't have to touch the material. Don't have to touch. You don't, and you don't have to hold another wire in your other hand, which they never show. You have to do that with makey. So you can use sensors to do exactly the same things that you would be doing with makey and Scratch. So that, I think, in and of itself is a very nice enhancement. You can use take the makey idea and divorce it entirely from any need to use it to have a aluminum foil contact and a grounding contact with your other hand, and just introduce students to the world of sensors. So that would work with a light sensor. It would work with a potentiometer. So one of the things, for example, I do with my students is I give them a variety of sensors, and I say, I want you to make a game controller for a game. Now, the game can be something that they create in Scratch, or it can just be, you know, Flappy Bird. And because, as you can do with a makey, because the signal goes back as a keystroke, you can control your own game or your Flappy Bird or your Mario or whatever. But now we can make a physical construction. So I have a student who took a piece of cardboard, took two of our tilt sensors. The tilt sensor will sense when something has gone over this way or gone over that way. And they make just a cardboard with two tilt sensors, connects to the board, goes back, and they have an air steering wheel. I'm sorry I don't have one with me, but, and they hold it up in the air, and as they turn it left and right, the car or the Flappy Bird or whatever it happens to be. So I think do with that mode is break out of the constriction of having to actually touch something. I mean, honestly, after a while, the banana piano gets a little tired. And the aluminum.
We have already a lot of questions. It's
yes.
Amazing. So.
Okay. So shall I shut up for a while and listen to
would you like? Yes. Ben, go on.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Well, actually, I think he's answering as I'm going along, but I'm a little bit confused by the modes. So to put them in, you actually have to program the board for each mode, right? You put those little wires each time you use it, or just when you plug it in, it automatically.
No, basically, imagine that it's got a little with 6 positions. So if you want to use the invention mode, you just turn it to position 1, and it stays there. So the idea of, but instead of putting in a switch, we made it so that if you want to change them, it's almost like a magic wand. There are 6 programs embedded in the board.
Right.
You can choose one, and once you've chosen one, it stays that way until you choose another. So I think the best analogy is, for various reasons, we didn't want to put a switch on the board.
Luisa.
We lost him.
Yeah, he's disconnected. Let's wait. Hello, so we can't hear you.
Eloisa, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
Yes, but the big problem is that we lost him. Let's wait for him come back. Yes. Oh, he's trying. He lost connection. Okay.
He came back and left. Okay, he's back.
We're back.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. So to answer, that was Sandy.
Yes.
Your question, it's a board that has 6 completely different personalities, and you can set any one of those personalities and it will stay there.
So you
So
said
it sounds a lot more complicated. You just say,
So
you know what? I want the Blockly mode. Okay, so what do? I do this.
right.
I plug it in. The lights will flash. Then I'm done. It's in Blockly mode, and it will stay there. So I know this is a little confusing, but it's, in practice, when you get the board, it defaults to the keystroke mode. Keystroke mode is like makey on steroids, basically.
Right.
So it comes out of the box. You don't have to set it to any mode at all. You say, you know what? I want to use the keystroke mode for a while, maybe forever, and you just use it. So what we have there are 18 alligator clips, like the smaller board, 18 alligator clips. So if you want this to connect to foil, that's okay. If you'd rather see it connected to a sensor, you just plug it in. Are you seeing this? Okay. Now, this sensor will now send back the W key. Let me see if I can get up close to that. So for each of these areas here, you have either the alligator clip holes or the sensor connection. So when you buy the board, you get these sensors, you get this board, and then you get a variety of modes that you can use. If you're crazy about JavaScript and you want them to program in JavaScript, it explains how to do it on the website, but basically you just set the JavaScript mode and it stays there. So it sounds a little confusing, but it's really almost just like a switch with one of 6 different modes. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Just to look a little bit more at the physics, again, I don't know how many of you are interested in getting your science teachers to be more involved with programming a little bit.
This is what I want to, because you are also a teacher, and so I think you can motivate them to make extremely complex projects for every levels. I'd like to know a little bit about this, if you can. Okay. What age, what classes, how is?
Yes. So I would say what I tried to do here is keep the, when you make a science experiment, whether it's speed, acceleration, gravity, moisture, wind speed, a light, all these different sensors can be used for this purpose. I've tried to keep the Scratch code very, very, very simple. So you'll see, again, as Sandy was asking, on the website, there are links to the Scratch code. So it might just be when the, good example, I'll give you an example. The ball is going down a ball on a cardboard ramp. Again, I'm also trying to keep the materials extremely inexpensive, and simple to use. So you want to measure, so here's an example. I want to know what the speed of the ball is when it hits the table, depending on how steep the ramp was. Okay, so I take 2 of these sensors, I put them on the table about 2 feet apart. My ramp is over here. And again, if you look on the website, you'll see pictures of this. The ball comes down the ramp. I measure the height of the ball. So the ball from the higher ramp is going to go faster. So all I need to do in Scratch is say, when this sensor sees the ball, start the timer. When this sensor sees the ball, stop the timer, and use a say, for instance, in Scratch to tell me what the timer said. So it might be 0.85 seconds or something like that. Then because I know the distance, have measured the distance between these two, I know it's 2 feet in 0.85 seconds, so I know what its speed is. And the Scratch code is nothing more than start timer, reset timer. You'll see it. It's very, very simple. So I think the idea of the science was that almost any teacher can feel comfortable with Scratch. It's a very simple Scratch program. The materials themselves, a ball, a table, a ruler, and a cardboard ramp. Those are the materials, and you'll get very accurate results, which you can graph. Now, if you want to get fancier, you can make a Scratch list. You can do 10 different iterations of it with different heights, and we can get Scratch to actually plot the results. We have other simple materials. This is a CD-ROM, a faucet washer.
Excuse me, Stephen. Maria Beatrice is asking which kind of school you teach.
Okay, so I have taught elementary school in which we use Scratch. I've taught middle school in which we use Scratch and a little bit of JavaScript. And currently, the last several years, I teach high school computer science and engineering. And I use exclusively JavaScript code, in particular the P5.js variation of that from NYU. Some colleagues of mine developed it's JavaScript, but it's a little easier to use and easier to share. The reason I like, in case you're interested, the reason I like JavaScript is because when my students write a program, and you have the URL to that program, it will run on any device. It's browser-based. It'll run on a cell phone. It'll run on a tablet. It'll run all they have to do to share it with somebody is give them the URL to the program. So I've stopped teaching in every other language except for JavaScript. So that's where I teach. I also teach engineering in the engineering course. And it was for 10th grade this year. That's where they made the steering wheels. Honestly, I could teach that in 5th and 6th grade also. That's a very simple type of operation. So you get the students thinking to themselves, I want to make something. Oh, I had one student who made, he took 2 of these proximity sensors and he built little foot pedals with them so that when your foot is pushed down, it sends a keystroke back. And when your foot is here, it doesn't see it. So he made 2 pedals to control the left and right steering on a game. You could easily do this in middle school or in 5th or 6th grade. So I think the answer is that if you're teaching Scratch, you're talking about 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. If you're teaching JavaScript, you're probably talking about high school. But either way, it's mostly about the invention of physical computing or what you can do with it. Or for science classes, you're using different sensors to test things. And again, I like to keep the materials very, very inexpensive. So if you look at a middle school science class or a high school science class, they may have spent thousands of dollars on a vernier or Pasco equipment with specialized software and specialized tracks and specialized sensors. You'll pay $50 for a photocell sensor, and they only cost about 30 cents. So I don't get that. But the idea is that, for the science aspect, here's just an example, and you'll see this in a little picture on the website. This is a CD-ROM. This is a faucet washer. Did you lose me? This is a 3/16 inch dowel of wood. And if you put this device on 2 meter sticks and let it roll down like this, you get an absolutely perfect, completely scientifically accurate acceleration curve with Scratch. So rather than spending, $500, you can spend, 85 cents and get more or less the same results. So that's my attitude towards science teaching. The other part of that is not just the money. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, because the picture disappeared. It's not just about the cost savings. it's also about the idea that, you know, if you want to do this with a paper disc, you can. If you want to do it with I don't know, a plastic plate, you can. Your students, when they see the problem, they can invent their own materials and work with them. Maybe they have a toy car going down a little ramp. So they can say, well, what if we try this? What if we try that? And it's all very inexpensive. And
Steven,
I think,
excuse me, one question, like just to understand the complete picture. How many students do you have in one class, and what level of preparation of them? So, like, is it average students or is it technical class? Just like to understand the concept.
So, as I say, I mean, I do teach high school, so my students are fairly proficient in JavaScript level. However, I also work with the elementary school and the middle school. In the elementary school, they use this board with some of these same materials. So we have third graders making the steering mechanism as well, inventing. They also make musical instruments. So you know that with Makey, you can touch different aluminum foil or bananas or whatever and make a musical instrument. But in our case, you can take the same idea of non-touch sensors or a light sensor. I can take a light sensor and connect it up. And so this is what we do in elementary school. They make, I think there's some pictures on the website, they make these beautiful instruments which they color in by hand, and they put some holes in them like these with the scissors, and they stick the sensors in, they connect it to the board. We're doing that with third, fourth, fifth graders, no problem. So the Scratch, you know, honestly, the Scratch code is very, very simple. So I think what it boils down to is for the younger grades, anything you can do with the Makey, you can do with this board, but you get to use sensors. In the middle school, we do science experiments of the type I described. We have temperature measurements, which go into Scratch and record the temperature. Ice melting, this fun experiment with the toothpaste where you've probably all seen this, where it kind of explodes outside of the test tube and flows everywhere. The temperature changes very, very, very quickly. You can't use a thermometer with it. So we put our temperature sensor inside the test tube and we see that. So that's all done with middle school. So I would say the invention part, the Makey with sensors, if you want to call it that, is elementary school. The science experiments and invention experiments carry through middle school. And the more sophisticated physical computing with coding like JavaScript or Blockly, or even continuing with Scratch or Arduino coding, that's high school level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and thank you a lot. And what's the size of the class at the same time? How many kids?
In the elementary school, we have classes of about 15. In the middle school, we have classes of about 20.
With one teacher.
And in the high school, I teach an elective. I get 8 or 10 or 12 kids in a class. Yeah.
Stephen, I had a question.
Okay.
How do you compare your board? I've heard the comparison to Makey. How does it compare to Microbit?
So here's what I tried to do. Well, first, let me say we actually are working right now on a Microbit expansion board that will incorporate some of the features. So Microbit is very nice in the sense that it lets you program with a block-based, and then you upload the program and you run it. That's always been the approach that people have used for microcontrollers. When you write an Arduino program, you do the same thing. You write the code, you upload it, and you hope for the best. Because you don't get, unless you use a serial output to, you know, it's awkward. What I tried to do in this, and we're doing the same thing in our Microbit expansion board, is preload the microcontroller with a number of programs so that as soon as it comes out of the box, you can use it. You don't need to go to the Arduino IDE. You don't, if for the microbit, for instance, you have to run that program before it'll do anything. So what we're doing with our microbit expansion, just so you understand, is the same thing that I did with the Arduino here, preloading a number of programs. So with our expansion board and we preload the microbit with a number of programs, just like we do here. So when you take the microbit out and you use our expansion board, all you have to do is put alligator clips on and you have something running right away. So in addition, we have some other features. The microbit has a terrible, terrible display. Absolutely incomprehensible how you could think that a 25 by 25 LED matrix, you could read text on it. So our microbit expansion board will have an actual LCD display that will show 32 characters. So you can see what's going on.
I didn't understand what the problem with the microbit.
The microbit's display has a 5 by 5 matrix of LEDs.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to read a result like hello, it got it's impossible. I see why they did it. It's kind of fun and they wanted to keep the cost down. But I think for when you want to get information from the board, for instance, if you want a reading of data, so our expansion board will have a real LCD display with many characters of information. So if you want to read a number, it's going to be on the whole entire number will be very easy to read, to read on the microbit display. So, but I think microbit's a great product. I just think it has some problems. And you can only access, I think, 3 of the ports at once. So we're adding a lot more ports simultaneously on the expansion board. But it's really almost the identical concept to what I did with the Arduino microcontroller, which is to say, your ordinary Arduino, for those of you who are teaching with Arduino, you know that as soon as you put more than 1 or 2 inputs or outputs, you're out of power connections. You don't have any more. They're not there. You've used them all up. Every Arduino board that I know of has that problem. So then what do? You bring on a breadboard. You jumper over to a breadboard. Now you've got the Arduino, you've got a breadboard, and you've got a bunch of sensors, which is okay. But what we tried to do in this board, again, for people who are teaching with Arduino, every one of the ports has power, ground, and signal. Every single one. So there's no hunting for power connections or ground connections. They're all there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We have 18 of them. So just from the point of view of being an Arduino breakout board, if you will, pretty good. So I think we're doing the same thing with the microbit. So, microbit is a really nice product. The price is very good. It just has some shortcomings and it doesn't have any preloaded software. So these science experiments are very difficult to code for it. The things that I've been talking about, acceleration, speed, gravity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
So let's open for more questions. Beatrice is asking, she has some problem with the microphone, so she is asking us to, she wants to know where it's possible to buy it and how expensive it is.
Ok, certo. C'è tutto il sito internet, sotto buy. If you look in the Beatrice, capisce? Okay. You can buy them. If you go on the Funkey.net website, there's a buy. I've broken the sensors into 3 groups. So you can buy the Makey, let's just call this the Funkey Simple, the Makey board. If that's what you want, you can just buy that. If you want the more elaborate board, this one, you can buy the board with one of 3 sensor kits. By the way, it also will work with any sensors that you have. I don't know whether your labs have a lot of sensors. I mean, Here's our buzzer. If I can bring that in. That's our buzzer. We buy these sensors from and outputs from China. You can get them in other packages. It has 3 pins: power, signal, ground. We only support, by and large, at the Scratch and JavaScript level, we only support analog sensors and digital and PWM outputs, if you know what that means. We also support directly a servo motor. So that's sort of built in to the board. However, we have 3 groups: beginner, advanced, expert. And I just grouped them together to make the pricing more affordable. If you just want to try it out, you buy the board and the basic. It gives you an LED. You'll see on the website under the buy section what you get, but you can just buy them. So they're there.
I have a question. You were saying the sensors. How about the WeDo? I have like a lot of WeDo sensors. Is that somehow possible to? Nah.
It's possible. I don't think it's worth it.
No. Okay.
No, you're not getting anything from them. Well, for one thing, I think they only have 2 or 3 sensors anyway, right? What do they have? A light sensor, a sound sensor? They don't have 20 sensors, do they?
No, they don't have. No, they have like 3.
So for $15, I mean, it is possible to do it, but it's way more trouble than it's worth, and a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you can even use my sensors with the vernier system, but they have a specialized connection. So, might as well just buy these things. What I'm offering is very affordable, and I have a lot more than they do. Right. But it won't really connect to the WeDo per se. I know how to do that, but it's I don't know if anybody really.
More trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, more trouble than it's worth. But the WeDo is great. We like the WeDo. And have you worked with the Pico board ever? You know what that is?
I know what it is, but I've never worked with them.
Yeah. So we put one of the modes for putting a sensor information into Scratch. We emulate the Pico mode. The reason we do that is because a lot of Scratch users might go to the extensions and they only have 3 choices: Pico, WeDo 1, WeDo 2. There's no nice way to say this. This is the stranglehold that MIT puts us under. They don't allow anybody else to be in the game. And we've been arguing about this. Even when Scratch X came out, I developed 3 or 4 different applications for it. And like I said, there's no nice way to say this. They have no interest in third-party developers adding value. They don't want to see it. So what we realized is that people who want to use the Pico, well, if you go on the website and you click, it automatically sets up for the Pico. But if you want to make your own, so it cuts both ways. But if you're a Scratch user and you click on Pico and our board is in Pico mode, it works very nicely. So that's, we're trying to make it a little easier for Scratch users who are kind of hemmed in a little bit by the way MIT treats the situation. So yeah, Pico is great. You can put in 6 different sensors. I have several different example programs already on the website, and you can see how they work. They're pretty simple. But that's the one we use for a lot of our science applications, because, for instance, if you want to track the moisture sensor overnight, you put it in Pico mode. And again, going back to your earlier point, once it's in Pico mode, it stays there. So you don't have to keep resetting it. It's just the mechanism that we use to say, I like the Pico mode. I want to use sensors with Scratch. I want to track information. So for the science part, you really have 2 choices. If it's a pretty simple idea, you can use the sensors in keystroke mode. That's makey mode. You say when the A key is pressed, which means a sensor was triggered, start the timer. When the B key is pressed, which is connected to the other sensor, stop the timer. There's no need for Pico mode in that case. You're just saying start and stop. And that works for a lot of different science experiments. And, for the acceleration experiment or the speed or the anemometer or other things. So I didn't spend too much time except at the very beginning talking about the invention mode. But if you think about Little Bits for a second, where they have rule your room, I don't know if you've seen the way they talk about what Little Bits can do. So they'll have a sensor And if the sensor is triggered, maybe it's a motion detector, then an alarm will go off. So they have this cute little picture of a little girl, and she's trying to keep her little brother out of her room. So she sets up, it's very sweet. She sets up this thing that when he walks in, the motion detector picks it up and it turns on the buzzer. It's not really going to keep him out, frankly, but that's a very nice feature of this board. And we do support, just to make sure, I know I'm covering so much, I'm sorry about this, but we're covering, this is the USB connection. You can use it for power, and of course you have to use it for communicating with the coding languages. This here is a battery power connector. So in the case of this invention that was supposed to tell you about the moisture sensor, we're actually running it off the battery. So you don't need a computer connected in order to use the, I'm just going to call it invention mode. You don't need a computer at all because every one of the ports is mapped. This one controls this. This controls this. And all I did in the moisture sensor was, it's really hard. Here's the battery connected to the battery port. Here's the moisture sensor connected to the port down at the bottom. It's just plugged right into the pins. And here's the the servo motor is connected to the one opposite it. So it's as simple as plug in the battery. This, so I can do this. This controls this. Anything you put in the second one controls the second one up. Anything you put in the third one controls the third one up. They're just pairs of inputs and outputs. So we tried to make that so that you take it out of the box, you plug in a sensor, you plug in an output, plug in the battery, or connect it up to the computer for USB power, and it works. I think that's, in many ways, the first thing you want. It might not fit what Andre was looking for, which is more, as far as I could tell, more coding, but it's great for elementary school kids and older.
Is it possible to use such a power bank
Yes,
as a power supply?
It's fine. Yep.
Okay.
Because the when the board is in this, let's just call it invention mode, where it's not using a computer, you could use the USB just for power. That works fine. You could use the battery, or you can take the USB power pack that you just showed and simply plug it into the USB port on the board, which is acting just looking for power. So that works fine. Yeah, and it'll power the servo motor, it'll power the LEDs, it'll power the buzzers, no problem. You can do all of that. Yeah, it's very nice. Sit all alone. If you're in a classroom where you don't have a computer for every kid, you want a nice activity, then you just use the board, a sensor, and output, and the battery or the battery pack that you just showed, the USB power pack. Yeah, it works fine.
Mm-hmm. And you're currently in a crowdfunding campaign.
You know, the crowdfunding is a disaster, frankly. I have this board. And I sell it. I used the Kickstarter to get publicity, and it just fell through the cracks. I see. I have very few. It was not a successful way to find people. So I do. But however, who's down in Maryland? We have a very large customer in the Baltimore County public school system. They're buying hundreds of these boards. I've already shipped them to them. So we have the boards in stock. We have the sensors in stock. We have customers. The crowdfunding Kickstarter, it was successful 4 years ago for me. It worked nicely. I think what's happened with Kickstarter over the years is there are 3,000 projects. I'm surprised somebody said that they saw us on Kickstarter. Thank you. That's very nice, but very few people noticed it. It's just very hard. At one time you could get noticed. It doesn't work anymore. Okay. So I'm doing direct sales to schools. I go to word of mouth, the best I can. But the Kickstarter, the people who signed up for the Kickstarter, I will give them a special discount just to buy it on the website. It just didn't get noticed. but that's okay. Look, I don't need the money from the Kickstarter. I have the boards already. I've financed the whole thing myself. I have 1,000 of them. I have thousands of sensors. We have a good production pipeline. They're made in China. I have an engineer who does the hardware design for me, and he's Chinese, and he calls up his friends in China and gets the production done. I'm very lucky from that point of view because it's really not so easy to get good quality, inexpensive production. Tried to keep this very reasonably priced. So I'm very lucky with that. But we have a lot of stock and we're selling a fair amount of them. I thought the Kickstarter would get me some new customers, but it just didn't get noticed. But anyway, you can ignore the Kickstarter, just order straight from, if you want to order straight from the website.
Yeah, that's just why I asked, because I wasn't sure about if somebody wants to order where to go. It's better to do it directly from Funkey.net.
Don't bother with the Kickstarter at all.
Okay,
sorry,
that's
confusing. Yeah, go to Funkey.net. And I know this is a little confusing because I'm holding up things in front of the screen, but if you go on the Funkey.net website and you go to the Do It, first of all, there's a section on sensors. I think it's called ins and outs. I wish I could show you on the screen, but I don't know how to, I don't know if we can do that. Ins and outs for each of the sensors, the inputs and outputs, and a little paragraph of description for it. There's a section called Do It, and Do It shows you how to make a series of projects. A good example of one we just did, where we wanted to know the speed of a fidget spinner. We did two things with a fidget spinner. One, we take this same sensor, obviously my favorite sensor,
It seems that he's off again.
Eloisa?
Yes.
Maybe, I mean, he's not, he can do that. He doesn't know how to use the screen share. I pulled it up. I mean, I can screen share the Funkeynet.
Yes, I told him in the beginning that he could use the screen share if he wanted.
But I don't think he sees that because that little app's all the way over on the, all the way over in the left, So.
Oh.
Yes, I told him, but.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that would help.
Maybe you could share if you want to send it.
Yeah, it's the website does a much better job than I can do right here. And if you go to the Do It section on Funkey.net, you'll see there are about 5 or 6 different projects you can do. But the one with the fidget spinner is quite nice. The fidget spinner goes on the edge of the table, and I have a Scratch program that actually plots the speed of the fidget spinner graphically, automatically. And if you run it, and you'll see this in the video, if you run it and the Scratch code is there, it makes a perfect parabola for you. It just draws it right in Scratch. It's fantastic. And you show this to a science teacher, I think they would really be very excited about it. The Scratch code is not complicated, and it just plots it out as the fidget spinner is slowing down. Because it's decelerating, which is the opposite, obviously, of acceleration, it makes a perfect parabola. It's very fun to watch. So I like to use these materials that the kids have. You can do the same thing with a pendulum as it's slowing down. If the pendulum is swinging back and forth and it's going to slow down, you can use the same sensor and the same similar Scratch code for that to make the plots. So for your science teachers, so, basically, I think there's the invention teachers, which is more of a elementary school, middle school kind of thing, the same thing you'd use Makey for, but with lots more capabilities. The science middle school and high school science teachers with very simple, inexpensive materials and very oriented towards DIY. I'm going to, what if we try this? What if we try that? The invention component where you want a buzzer to go off if something happens. And then the coding interfaces, which basically physical computing. I know somebody talked about that at the beginning, physical computing with Scratch, physical computing with Blockly, programming the inputs and the outputs in Blockly. I can't get Scratch to control the outputs. It just can't be done. We've come up with a lot of mechanisms that get around it. Scratch X provided this capability, but they've disabled Scratch X as far as I can tell. So it's really a big problem with Scratch. However, Blockly, so for the inputs to Scratch, no problem. You just use the Pico mode, goes in beautifully, it's perfect, 6 or 8 different analog inputs, it's fantastic. To control, you know, when the light level reaches this, I want something else. If you want that to happen, not in the invention mode, but in the coding mode, you need to use Blockly, JavaScript, or of course, Arduino IDE. Those are your options right now. I don't have a Python interface. I'm not a big fan of Python. JavaScript to me is really great, and Blockly is very good. We have a sample Blockly program that actually will show you, reads out the information from the sensors, and then you can say, if the sensor light value is greater than 512, then turn on the buzzer. If something else, you know, and then in JavaScript, you can control things back on the screen from the sensors, which is really nice. And you could make your own graphs. So, you know, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of different things that can be done with this. I'm a one-man company. I try to keep up with as many examples as I can. I think it's not too bad, but it's really fun and easy to use, and I try to keep it reasonably priced. I don't mean to be doing all the talking. I'd love to hear more questions.
Oh, Stephen, I had a question. Are you coming to the Scratch conference this summer?
Am I?
Yes.
All right, so this is the saga.
I was thinking the same thing.
I proposed a session, believe it or not, and they rejected it. Yes, that's correct. They rejected my session with no explanation. So this is part of the long-standing, I don't understand what MIT is doing with this. So honestly, maybe I'll come, but I'm not, you know, I'd like to meet you guys in person, but I'm not very happy with MIT. This is a unique board. There's nothing like it out there. And they I proposed a session, and they said, we've had so many sessions of proposals. We're really sorry, but we can't accept yours. So that put a little bit of a bad taste. I don't mean to be a cranky person, but that put a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, I would just be walking around the floor and talking to you, which is okay. I might go, but
yes. I feel that a lot of stuff is changing in this laboratory, in Media Lab, in Lifelong Kindergarten group. They have, I think they have grown very fast, very, very much. And I see in the last LCL that there are new people, new students. So I think this year is a little bit strange. I talked to other old friends, and they felt, they say they felt the same. So the things are changing. So it's a period that your work has not been. It's a shame. So, but we are may I say, we are the very original group from 2013. This community has begun as Alan has participated in 2013, and all of us try to keep being together and working together, exchanging. So we submitted a poster session was accepted, not a Ignite talk. A poster session was accepted this time. So many of us are going to be there, and maybe we are going to organize unconferences, like they say, and we really want to make it grow, to help each other across the world, across the countries, you know. So this year it's going to be in Boston. So last year it was in Bordeaux. So we could meet others from from Europe, for example.
Yeah.
So in the name of our group, it would be a very honor, pleasure to have you with us there. Besides this crazy things of your, as much of our other good works has not been. I don't know what the creatures they are using to judge. Maybe they have so many in our proposals. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
if you guys are going,
please go on, Maureen, Sandy.
I have one more question.
Everybody.
Okay, is it compatible with Snap? Can we use it with Snap?
Certainly from the keystroke part, completely compatible. I haven't spent that much time on Snap. Snap is, in my opinion, a far superior product to Scratch. But so from the keystroke point of view, yes. Do they have a? Well, let's just say if I thought there were a lot of Snap users, I could easily make an input-output connection that Scratch does not allow. My problem is limited resources and time. If I could find somebody who wanted to do that, I've been talking to Alan Yorinks about it because he's got some skills in that area. My only reservation is, so keystroke, yes, no problem, absolutely 100%. All the science things we were talking about, where the ball goes past, no problem at all. I'm sure there's a way to do it. Only because Snap, even though it's a much better product, does not have much of an audience. I haven't put the resources into it. I put it instead into JavaScript connection, and I just haven't had the time. But if anybody wanted to do that, I don't think it's very difficult to do, and I would be happy to provide whatever I need to do for somebody to do that. I just don't think there are very many Snap users, even though it's a spectacular product. Yeah, and it would be easy to make the input-output connection so we could control motors and lights and buzzers from the code, no problem. I just don't have the time to do it, but I do like that product a lot. Wasn't Jens supposed to be on this group? Isn't he, Jens Monig? Isn't he involved in Snap?
He's definitely involved, but I mean, maybe he just doesn't have time.
Yeah.
It's weekend and he has children, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying if there were somebody within the Snap world, I would be happy to provide them with whatever they need to make that connection. I just haven't had the time to put it in because I don't know how many Snap users would be interested. It sounds like at least one. You use Snap?
Yes, we based Turtle Stitch on Snap, so we are working a lot with Snap. But actually, I work more with Turtle Stitch, and I am not the main person who is doing the code development. So, but
Okay.
of course, there is not a small network of Snap developers around.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to work with one. So I know Susan Ettenheim quite well. She's
wonderful.
Yeah, but she's local and she's bought a bunch of boards. I thought she might be today. Wonderful. No, I'm totally open to it. I just don't think I can do it myself, but I can make all the everything available to anyone who wants to try that for now. Yeah. Good program.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Unfortunately, there are other people that wanted to join us, but there's a limit of 8 people. So there are 2 or 3 more that would like to be with us. So it's a very good presentation, so a lot of fun. We are going to spread this word.
Okay.
And maybe we should use another platform to make these sessions. Anyway, this session will be recorded. We're going to put in our playlist. Please, who has not subscribed to it, we have organized it and we're trying to make it work, because all this is a lot of work to organize and to put everything, site links and this stuff. Of course, suggestions and contributions are always open. I'm sorry for some technical problems here. We are all learning together and trying to improve it the best we can. It's going to be recorded. It's going to put in the playlist. We're going to announce in the group, in the Facebook page. So it was a very, very pleasure to have you here. Wonderful work. Congratulations. And so please be with us. We have a very strong fan club now, another one. And I hope to meet you personally soon. So let's stick together, educators and dreamers around the world.
I really appreciate the opportunity to meet you guys, and it's been a lot of fun. And I'm always open to suggestions, thoughts, collaborations, whatever you like. And I think you've convinced me maybe I should come to Boston. So I'm always available if you come through New York. And that's fun to visit. If anybody comes through New York, it's fun to visit our school.
Maybe we pass through New York before going to Boston.
Yeah. Okay.
And make another conference over there. It's an idea, isn't it?
I'm so glad you invited me to the group. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody, Andre, would you like to talk something?
Just to thank you, Eliza and Stephen, for this presentation. It was very interesting, actually.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your great work in Russia.
He's going to talk about it soon. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
And Andrea, about 30 Stitch. She's going to talk, to present her work too. That is amazing as well. So it's a lot of amazing people here. So
yeah,
it's great. Veronica?
Okay, thank you. Okay, Stephen, Stephen, I want to say, when somebody like you made things or tools who can work at school, I work with different level of teachers, from kindergarten or maybe nursery school to master degrees or something like that. And when you give the power to the teachers, using that kind of tools are easy to use, you can imagine how many things they can do. Because I'm going to say this quickly. I saw in a nursery school how the teachers made with Makey with the children 7 months years old. 7 months years old. Because the teachers are put this boards, the Makey, to the vegetables, and the children needs to touch the vegetables, the different vegetables. And when I saw a little boy, 7 months years old, touching the vegetables, and the vegetables make sounds because they put the vegetables with sound, and the faces change when he touch and hear the sound or the music of the vegetable. It looks so great for me. And when you give this to the children, the opportunity to do things with materials not expensive, because you can see all schools, and I think in all the whole world, needs to use materials not expensive. This makes the things great. And we can learn about how the teachers can do things with the students if you give them the power.
Very nice. Absolutely. It's great. That's a great story.
And thank you. Thank you. I'm going to tell my teachers about Funkeynet.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. It's a nice, very good work.
Beatrice is wishing good Easter for everyone, for all her friends worldwide, from in many parts of the world. Thank you, Beatrice. Good Easter for you too. Maureen, Sandy, final words?
I'm
No,
just going to say,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Maureen. I'll wait.
Oh, sorry, Sandy. No, I was just really thrilled that Stephen got to talk about his new boards because I see great uses for them in my school, and I know that the kids will really enjoy them. So thank you, Stephen.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maureen.
I was just going to say, well, I was going to thank you as well, because I was been back and forth, because I was at first, when I looked at those, I was thinking, well, it's a makey, and I already have like 12 makey.
Yeah.
But after listening to you and seeing how the sensors work, I'm real excited to, give it a try. And I like the idea that I don't have to be grounded, like the whole Earth thing. And I'm like excited by that, because that sometimes becomes an issue with, I don't know, so. So thank you for presenting, and I'm really glad that I sat in on this to get some clarification on it, because at first I was like, oh, it's a makey, and I already have so many makeys. But it's there's a lot more to it than just the makey. So thanks.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you very much, Stephen.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to meet you all, and maybe we'll see you. Well, I'll see you online in the next event.
Yes. So. Now we are connected using Messenger, whatever, WhatsApp. Okay. Let's be in touch. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Very good Easter for everybody. And
thank you.
let's schedule the next sessions after Easter. We have Jens Monik from Snap. We have Andrea and Andre, also big progress to be presented. So let's wait for that. Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.